Hi, guys. So I think this is actually one of my favorite humans. Some of the people that inspired me to start the business are on this panel. And I think for everyone that's an entrepreneur, having a mission, because when you start something as dust or an idea and you have 100 people saying no, it's a crazy thing to turn something into, turn nothing into something. And so it's an incredible push. So I hope that this panel really inspires you guys. So I'm going to introduce you guys to, and I just want to really quick for a little context. I've known Payal for over 10 years. She founded ClassPass. She was the first woman that I had ever seen that looked like me, that said unapologetically, I'm going to build $1 billion business. And then guess what happened? Oh my gosh, she built one. So I just want you guys to know words are incredibly powerful. Doing things and showing up the way that these women have is something that just holds my heart. So anyways, Payal, I'd love for you to just give some context, and then we'll go down the line with Lauren and Randi Zuckerberg.
Hi, everybody. My name is Payal Kadakia. I am the founder of ClassPass. I'm also the founder and artistic director of an Indian contemporary dance company called the Saad Dance Company. And I can't wait to talk about mission. I think everything in my life has always come from a place of purpose. And I think that's really the best way to combine our vocation and our life. And I hope that everyone in their journey of life finds that.
Lauren?
Hey.
Just introduce.
Yes.
I'm Lauren.
And your background. We all know Feed.
Okay.
Lauren Bush, has created an incredible company, but just talk about a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, so Feed is my social business. We're also a 501c3 public charity. Feed's been around 15 years, which is hard to believe. And it really started when I was a student. I had the opportunity to travel and start learning about the issue of hunger globally, as well as here in the US, and really wanted to do something about it. And at the same time, I really loved design and I love fashion. And Feed was sort of the merging of this, wanting to give back, wanting to engage others in the issue of world hunger, while also, creating a brand essentially and a business that would help generate funds to help fund school meals. So, many different evolutions along the way, but really proud that Feed 15 years in is still, as dedicated as we were on day one to help feeding kids globally in school who are food insecure.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. I remember when you started and how big it's gotten, and just the mission has always stayed very true to the brand. And then Randi, who I've known for I feel like since I for 20 years, and you're just just a little bit about your background, because I think it's incredible. And I also love, and we were going to touch on this as well. Randi also is an incredible singer. I've seen her in musicals, on Broadway. There's no wrong answer to how you build your life and be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be siloed in one little bucket. Payal has a dance company, but Randi, just give a little bit about your background as well.
Thank you so much, Megan. And also, what an honor to share the stage with these incredible women. We were the young hotness at the start of Web 2 together. Now we're the experienced, wise executives going into Web 3. Payal, it's been incredible watching you smash boundaries as an entrepreneur. Has just been so inspiring. And Lauren, I feel like you pioneered the cause and mission-driven company, and I felt like I watched your rise side by side. So it's really an honor. I started my career at a little company called Facebook alongside someone else with the last name Zuckerberg, who you might be familiar with. Worked there for a decade and then blew up my entire life to go sing on Broadway and moved to New York. And now here I am combining art and tech on the front lines of Web3, building an art marketplace for artists around the world who want to accept both fiat and cryptocurrency.
It's incredible. So Just as a question, because I think sometimes you don't know what your mission is, right? Or you don't even know what your company is. And I think, I've gone on that journey where I was like, yeah, I go to business seminars, I'd sit in front, and then I'd ask the guy that was leading the seminar, what business should I do? What should I do? So how do you tune in to finding what your mission is? Because you guys all have very clear missions, and I know, just speaking to you, Payal, you're very in tune with your gut on like what your legacy is, building things that are timeless. How do you get there?
So I'll give a little backstory, I guess, on ClassPass. When I started it started with a problem. I wanted to find a dance class to take, and I couldn't find it. And it seemed like a small problem at the time, but it turned out to be a behavioral challenge for everyone in the world who was looking for fitness classes or other types of classes in their life. And I think for me in that moment, my mission was to get to class. But what I really realized is actually here I was this 25-year-old girl in New York City working in consulting, and I had kept a passion in my life that I felt so many of my friends had given up. A lot of my friends who are athletes in college or, artists had just sort of gone into becoming, into finance and consulting and forgotten this sort of drive that they had in the activities and arts and things that they loved. And I wanted to bring that back. So I realized for me over time, as I was building the company, and as every single person kept going to class, it became about experiences for people. And we really, while people think we're a fitness company, we really were a lifestyle company about experiences. And every single time you go to class, you get that adrenaline rush. We were just talking about how it feels so good to work out. And that's the greatest feeling, I think, as an entrepreneur, to give somebody that. And I think through the journey, you might not know exactly how to put the mission into words in the beginning, but in your heart, you're solving the right problem. And I feel the same way with when someone comes up to me today and it says, I booked a class on ClassPass, and it might be, our 100 millionth reservation. But I felt the same way when the first person booked a class. And I think that's when you're doing the right thing, is when it's not about like scale, it's not about numbers, it's truly about how one person feels because of your product. And I focused a lot on that.
I love that. Lauren, how did you find that mission with Feed?
The mission found me, honestly, in many ways. I was, again, a student in college, and I had the amazing opportunity to start traveling with the World Food Program. And it just aligned, like the stars literally aligned, because it was a time in my life when I was, very open and receptive and wondering what my journey would be and what my career could be. And then I was exposed to just the vast disparity that exists in the world. So 800 million people, mostly just because of where they're born, wake up not knowing where their next meal is coming from. Like it's almost like 1 in 8 people. So in terms of the cause found me. But I think what Payal really said, resonates. It's then also as an entrepreneur getting in touch with like, what am I meant to do with my life, with my time and resources and talents? And one advice I always give folks is like, think back to when you were little and when it was just play, like when you were just having fun and no one was telling you what to do. And there's a real hint of truth in like about yourself in whatever that was. And for me, it was always I was very creative. I love making things. I love being entrepreneurial. I love selling, crafts and flowers and whatever, Girl Scouts cookies to neighbors and friends. I found a lot of joy out of creating these little micro businesses. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of wisdom in sort of getting in touch with like that younger self and figuring out what really turns you on, and then somehow incorporating that into your career path.
I love that. Randi, you're such a Renaissance powerhouse. Like I feel like the triple threat, the singing, the dancing, the tech, the writing the children's books, the doing the tech platform. the media company. So how within that, is there like one single thread of mission that you go after, or where do you find that, and how do you decide to focus your time, or, and in different phases of your development, just what has been your mission, and maybe it's involved, to today?
It's a great question, and I think I've grown more comfortable with the fact that sometimes your mission and your purpose change over time as you experience the world, as you personally exist in your own skin and in the world. So I have to say, I spent the first decade of my career basically being the only woman in every room that I was in. I know many of us have had that experience, and so that probably has been the biggest through line of my career, is trying to make sure that everything that I do through my Zuckerberg Media, which is my entity that does investments in women-led companies, it's like 90% female founders that we're working with, and trying to be very purpose-driven. But I will say, as I've gotten more into tapping more into the artistic side of myself over the last several years, that has also really evolved a lot of what I'm passionate about too. I think watching all of Broadway come to a complete halt during COVID, and just seeing thousands and thousands of people be completely put out of work, many of whom were about to make their Broadway debut, like they had just made it. And I just started to think, why should we live in a world where location and middlemen and governments can shut down entire artistic industries? And so that has really put a lot of a new sense of purpose and mission into what we're building at Hug, around giving artists more control of their careers and letting them have direct access to their communities that way. So, that's not something that I really was thinking about pre-pandemic, but I think it's okay to let your mission and your purpose change over time.
Well, and I love that, because you're empowering others through their art. In terms of learnings that you've had, and tactical learnings, so this is founder made, there's a ton of business builders out there. Are there and feel free, whoever it speaks to, what learnings have you had from building your business that you think would be one key thing that I wish I had known when I started that I didn't know? And, I think that's a really important thing for just people to, I can start, which is, for me, energy and hires and the energy of the team and the company culture is something that I didn't value until I valued it, right? And I'm still learning it, and it's still an evolution, but I think that for me is a learning.
I'd say two things. One is to stay mission obsessed and not product obsessed. So being able to pivot, I feel like people always tell me I'm like the queen of pivoting, because I'm all about trying something new. If it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that the problem you were trying to solve in the world is gone. It just means the solution you came up with doesn't work. So I think that's a really big one. And I think the other part, and it's similarly tied to that, is these things take a while. And, we sometimes want to do things quickly, but any startup, any project I've worked on artistically, professionally, I think the great stuff in life takes time. And if you stick with it through and through, you will get there. It's usually when you give up that, you think you failed. But look, at the end of the day, failure is a moment in time, and you just have to keep going forward. But really, honestly, it's like even ClassPass or my dance company, last year we had this amazing moment where we got to perform for the President of the United States. And I actually started my dance company 15 years before, or not 15 years, but 3 years before I started ClassPass. And people always ask me, how did you do this? And I'm like, both things in my life have taken over a decade to get to this point. And I think we sometimes, especially in this day and age where things are quick and we want to just kind of run and go things and accomplish things quickly, we forget that. But I would really just hang on to the mission and hang on to the vision, and you will get there.
I totally agree. Overnight success forget about the overnight success. It's all about positive perseverance. My dad's in the front row, and he's shaking his head, and he started a company when I was 2 years old, and literally is daddy's company going public since I was 2. And then after 24 years, 25 years, something like that. So it takes time, but he's shaking his head, which is good. Lauren.
Sweet. I couldn't agree more, being a 15-year-in founder. I think a lot about being an entrepreneur is knowing yourself. So instead of just grinding, like there's an inertia to our inboxes. We could spend 1 million hours beyond in our inboxes. I think there's a real value to getting out, hence Founder Made and the value that you've created here. Getting out in the world, meeting other, founders, creating a community of yourself, of people that have, from different industries, with different knowledge bases. Just that's really fed me, and it's been the kind of backstop that I've been able to lean on. Those fellow founders, especially female founders, are really sort of my, gang. They're my phone a friend. They're the people I call on when I have questions, big and small. So the sooner you can find that community and proactively create that community for yourself, the easier your journey will be, but also the more joyful your journey will be.
Randi, what are some big learnings? I know you have some great learnings along the way, but also in different sectors too.
Yeah.
I mean, especially on Broadway. Like, what were some? I mean, it's a lot.
Well, I think probably the three of you came to this realization much earlier than I did. I think I only came to this year, but if you don't take care of yourself and you don't show up for yourself, you cannot show up for your company, for your investors, for your family, for anyone else in your life. And we saw this at the start of Web 2, where so many people burnt out right before it got good. And now I'm seeing that again with Web 3 and AI. We see entrepreneurs just grinding and hustling, and they're going to burn out right before it gets good. And so this go around in building, I feel like I've kind of made a commitment that, like, for the first time in my life, I'm gonna try to take a little better care of my body and my health, and really try to show up for myself so I can be there for my business and for everyone else more. And it's a harder to do than to say. Well, we have almost 10 children between us on this panel, right? It's hard to have a business and to be there as a parent and still make time for yourself. But the more that I've prioritized that, I feel I've been better in every other area of my life. So I wish I had learned that earlier.
So I'm going to back to you on this, time management and prioritizing yourself. And if anybody hasn't read Payal's book, LifePass, she has an incredible way of prioritizing her time and actually making, and we'll go into this a little bit more, but I'd love to know, how do you guys take care of yourself? You had a bad day, or how are you prioritizing your time? I mean, you have how many children?
All the children. No, I have three children. So, but
how many companies? How many children? How many in-laws and family members? I mean,
yes, I think you just have to have some non-negotiables in your day. That and again, these are words that are much easier to say than to actually implement. But even just in the last 6 months, I feel like I've just started to have a non-negotiable time in the day that's for fitness or for other things that I try to carve out. Of course, everything can explode if you're on the road or your kids are sick, but I find that if I start out my day prioritizing myself, then I have the energy to be there for everyone else.
Lauren, how are you prioritizing?
I give myself.
What do you do when you have a bad day or a bad hour? How do you get out of it?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think it helps to break things down into incremental. I'm a big fan of a list, and I love and I don't always do this, when I can have headspace over the weekend to actually like write down my major priorities for the week to start. Because I find sometimes Monday morning is can be extremely overwhelming. There's so many different, balls in the air, things to juggle. And if you can start, just with those bigger bracketed priorities and kind of almost, I have like a sticky note on my computer. Like I just keep referring back to those things and make sure that every day or at least every week, I'm sort of creating momentum and like continuing momentum on those priorities. I think that's been hugely helpful. I also read a book I would recommend called Time Management for Mere Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. He also has a really good newsletter that really helped me to put things in perspective. So I'll recommend that.
And Payal, we're going to talk about this LifePass method because I've done it on the plane when I have like the full focus and no Wi-Fi and listening to your book. So
I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but what I will say is I agree with Lauren. I think a lot of this comes down to taking a moment to reflect and plan and being able to cut out the noise that's in your life. And I think that is the hardest thing to do, but the most important. So when I'm stressed out and I have too much going on, I just go back to writing it all down and circling the things I want to do. And I think the other key part of it is delegate if you need to, cancel things if you need to, and don't feel guilty. Because guilt is usually the thing that makes us do all these meetings and makes us do all these obligations that we don't want to do. And I think I have learned, and I've had to learn because I've had a busy life already, that it's not worth it. And I think if you know how to do that and not feel bad, you'll be able to really focus on what you want to say yes to, and the no's disappear.
I love that. And now we're going to go into team. How do you get because I've seen with all of you how you're able to take your mission, synthesize it within yourself, and then hire around that and get everyone. I mean, I'm not going to say cult of ClassPass, but like people at ClassPass and I mean feed, and it was like everyone knows about it. The brands, the customers, they love it. So how did you think about your first hires? Especially startup mode. Maybe you had, how did you think about that? Your business partners, how did you figure out that they were aligned with your mission?
I think the people you hire early on have to be unbelievably motivated by the mission, more than anything, more than the money, more than the equity. They really have to care about what you're building, or they're not going to do the challenging hours and work that is required. And I think as you get bigger, it's not always easy to make sure everyone in your company understands the vision and mission. I think you have to build that into the culture. At ClassPass, I mean, people would go work out all day long. We came to work in workout clothes. It was something that we just did. And we actually hired a lot of people who were our members. And that really helped because a lot of people would say, this product changed my life. I really want to help you guys. I'm a product engineer. I'm this. And we would hire them. And it ended up being great for us because they not only loved the mission, but they understood the experience we were building.
Randi, how are you thinking about hiring since you are in startup? How long has Hug been around, and then how big is the team? Yeah. And how are you thinking about hiring?
Yeah, we've been around for about a year, and especially in a space like Web3 that's constantly changing, that one day everyone in the markets love it, the next they're like it's dead. So you really have to hire people who are passionate, who are excited. A lot of people from our team came up from our community of artists. Another thing that's a little wild hiring in Web3 is that a lot of people are anonymous. So there have been like some people in our community or on our team that like I never even knew what they looked like or anything until we'd been working together for months, which is actually kind of a beautiful way to hire when you think about it. So it's really expanded my own horizons about what makes for a great team and someone. But I think the biggest thing that I look for is curiosity. because, again, in a fast-moving space, you have to really be a self-starter. The space is changing from week to week, so people have to take initiative to learn on their own, and it's really exciting. I feel like I am by far the least talented person on my entire team, which means I've done my job.
That is the best. Hire people that are much more talented and stars. Lauren, how did you start your company, and how were you thinking about employees? And then now, since everybody knows Feed, and how have you been growing it? How are you thinking about things?
I mean, I think there've been different phases of the team and team culture. I mean, candidly, we're remote mostly now. Those of us left in the New York area meet up, once a week and try to maintain that. But it is just it's different than when I was in my 20s. Yeah, I'd spend all morning, all night, I'd have a birthday party and the whole team came. It was a really...
At your office, right?
Yeah, it was just...
Are we in for offices, or are we out for offices? What's the consensus here? I used to work in hedge fund banking, and I'd have to be in the office at 6 a.m. and leave. And if I left at 5, I'd be banker hours. So I miss people. I don't know.
I don't have the answer, but I think it's a combination of both. We need the in-person human interaction to stay connected. It's motivating, it's inspiring. I think what you miss over Slack and Zoom and on the web is those candid, more, free-flowing brainstorms and conversations and problem solving. So I miss that, and I feel like we're getting doses of that as we can in this new kind of hybrid moment. But I don't know. I just think it's so important to, hire people who are dedicated and, working for that common vision and common cause, but also bringing their own, unique perspective and passion, and that they feel, I think the key with anything is that they feel inspired, motivated, that they have the autonomy to have an idea and see it through. And I mean, that's the value of working in a small company. You actually can literally come up with the idea, and see it all the way through to fruition. And that's not for everyone, but that leads to that, the curiosity and self-starter quality that is just so essential in a startup.
Beautiful. All right, because I have 3 minutes. So I love legacy. I love thinking about what my 90-year-old self, what would she say, or what would that one sentence about what's your ultimate mission for your life? And I know we talk about this a lot. So I would love, if you guys have something where you're this is, and I think when you say things, they end up happening. Words are very powerful. So, if you had something that Lauren, we'll start with you in terms of what you're oh, we'll start with, but what, with Feed, or just with your life, or just, we're young in our careers, right? We're just getting started, really, ultimately, especially if we're all living till we're 120, which apparently we all are with all this wellness. So, what would you say, you'd be happy to have on your tombstone, or happy to have, people say?
Oh my gosh, that's a big one. I guess that I was a conduit for good. I hope that, through business, through my parenting, through, my friendships and relationships, that's the through line.
It's beautiful. Randy?
I think having spent the first half of my career building platforms, I've realized that we could build the biggest platforms in the world, but they're nothing without art and creation and an artist. And as an artist myself, I hope that this next chapter of my career can be about centering creators and artists and giving people a chance to really own their livelihood and make an amazing living doing what they love, because the world depends on it.
So beautiful. And that other piece of your brain that's creative is actually, you have to open up your creativity on the other side of your brain in order to be good in business. You can't get one without the other, right? My dad listens to symphony at the same time as building his company and, loving opera. So, and Payal.
You know mine, but it is to be a creator of timeless things. I always believe in building stuff that can outlast me, whether that is companies, art, friendships, kids. I think that's really one of the goals in life, is to just build things that will stay and sort of go on without you and have vibrations in the universe outside of just you. And I think that's the best thing we can all do.
I mean, are these women living in color? I mean, beyond brilliant, right? These are not just ladies that launch, they build, they think bigger, and I hope this inspired you guys to think bigger. There's no wrong way to build a life, and we're all here to support everybody in their journey. Thank you.